Hi, this is Ron Darling.
This is Skip Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the 69 New York Mets, and you're listening to MetsMusings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of MetsMusings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to MetsMusings. I am Gary Mack, your host, and before we get started, I'd like to give you a quick stat, and that is that 82.6% of you watching this video are not subscribed. So do me a favor, hit that free subscribe button. It helps me out running the channel and getting you the best Mets content that I can. And it also ensures that you don't miss any updates or any notifications when a new episode is uploaded. So thanks in advance for that. Now let's get into it. Well, as you know, the Mets went out to the West Coast, played the LA Dodgers 4 games, tough games, but the news isn't all good. 2 injuries this week, one we'll talk about later, but Francisco Lindor came up with a broken toe after he was hit by a pitch by Tony Gonsolin on Wednesday night against the Dodgers. He is out of the lineup, or he was out of the lineup last night. Acuna played short, but plans to play through the injury and considers himself to be day by day. He'll see how the pain tolerance is, and if he can tolerate it, he will play. The problem with that is sometimes is that it can affect your game. These guys are fine-tuned machines. And anything that throws off their games, now during the course of a season, of course, there's aches and pains and all of that kind of stuff. But somebody of his caliber, it can affect his balance hitting, his stride, his running abilities. Defensive side, it can hurt his range. If he's in a lot of pain, he's going to try to tolerate it, and he deserves to get every chance he can. But the Mets have to keep a close eye on it and keep that in mind as they go along. So in this series, Game 1, Paul Blackburn could not have pitched any better than he did, and could not. What a script for Hollywood. He threw a 5-inning game, shutout innings in the Mets' 4-3 win against the Los Angeles Dodgers. They did manage to tie up the game, and it went 10 innings, but Blackburn was sensational in his 5 innings that he pitched starting the game. And that's a great sign for the Mets, for him to come back and do that. And Francisco Alvarez was the hitting star of the game, delivering the game winner in the 10th. In Game 2, the Mets and the Dodgers had another one-run game. Only the Dodgers came out on top 6-5 on this one. Tyler McGill went 6 innings, giving up 4 runs on 4 hits and a walk, while tallying 7 strikeouts, and yet he struggled a little bit. Didn't have his great stuff, but managed to get the job done. Griffin Canning in Game 3 was terrific again. He didn't have his best stuff, but he gritted it out and really had a fine performance there. Pete Alonso's on a homer tear right now, so look out. He had a couple in this game and would go on to homer again in Game 4 of the series. So the Mets took Game 3. Game 4, a rare poor outing from Reed Garrett. and a Brett Beatty error late in the game did the Mets in during a 6-5 loss to the Dodgers in L.A. David Peterson, again, another starter, didn't have his best stuff, but he delivered yet another lengthy and gutsy performance that the Mets really needed because their bullpen was really stretched. So kudos to David Peterson for coming through in a big spot and getting the job done for the bullpen. Unfortunately, Reed Garrett couldn't get it done, and the Mets went down, splitting this series with the Dodgers. Pete Alonso hit another home run in the loss, and right now Pete is on a home run tear, which bodes well for the Mets. He does love to hit in L.A., though, but with the Mets going to Colorado next, and you know how the balls fly out of there, that could be a good sign for Pete. He'll be very happy to get there, perhaps, and go from there. All right, now let's take a look at the injury update. And first off, Frankie Montas, he had his first rehab assignment. He went to, not his first, but it was his first at AAA Syracuse, and he did struggle. He worked his way back from a month-long lat strain. Montes took a beating against the Blue Jays affiliate, allowing 5 runs on 8 hits and 1 walk while striking out 4. While he reached 61 pitches, 43 of them were strikes, and stretched out to 4+ innings of work, half of the hits were the home runs. That's not good. Montes looked much sharper last Thursday in his second rehab start for High A Brooklyn. In that outing, the 32-year-old allowed 2 runs on 2 hits and 2 walks while fanning 3 across 3 frames. He also threw 49 pitches. So he's working his pitch count up, though. Results weren't that great, but we'll see, he's really just working on stretching out right now and getting things done. Sean Manaea is about to make significant progress in his recovery from a right oblique strain. Manaea will begin a minor league rehab assignment tonight at High A Brooklyn. They are in Wilmington, so I guess he's going to go to Wilmington and play there with the Cyclones, marking his first game action since last year's postseason. The left-hander is slated to throw around 35 pitches in the start. From there, Manaea will spend several weeks building up a pitch count to a full starter's workload. He remains on track to debut in late June or early July. I would even say maybe late July after the All-Star break, but, we'll see how it all works out. But again, the starting pitching staff has been good. It's been real good. So there is no need to rush these 2 guys back. Now, of course, they go on a clock. I think it's a month or something once they start their rehab assignments. So that's an issue as well. But you can always find a way to get them to the minors, or they could have a slight setback for a couple of weeks if you're going good and want to stash them away. There are ways of doing it, but it would be nice to get an injection of fresh arms all of a sudden in towards the end of the season. So that's going to be interesting to see how the Mets handle that when these guys come back as well, considering the way the the pitching staff is going right now. So that's good news for the Mets, though, that they're getting those two guys are getting ready to come back. Now, we did have another injury I mentioned earlier in the show. Mark Vientos suffered a low-grade hamstring strain in the 10th inning of the Mets win the other night over the Dodgers. He is receiving treatment for a period of 10 to 14 days and will restart baseball activities after that once he's symptom free. Now, he has been placed on the 10-day IL, and taking his place in the Mets roster, I should say, is not Reed Garrett. But it is Ronnie Mauricio, who was red hot and was called up to replace him. And Mauricio has played in 3 games versus the Dodgers, and he is yet to record a hit. So he came up red hot, but was not has not been able to do it yet on the big league level. And in other Mets news, Mets closer Edwin Diaz was the recipient of the Reliever of the Month honors for the National League. For May, Diaz was utterly dominant in May, throwing 11.1 scoreless innings and racking up 5 saves. So congratulations goes out to Edwin Diaz, who had a terrific month of May. And in other news, the Mets stars of the recent past are about to test themselves against those of a prior generation, as the team players were going to hold an alumni classic at Citi Field, pitting Team Shea Stadium against Team Citi Field. The game will take place September 13th at Citi Field. The Shea Stadium roster is composed of players on the Mets' 2000 and 2006 playoff teams, including Mike Piazza, Edgardo Alfonso, Carlos Beltran, Pedro Martinez, and Jose Reyes. The Citi Field roster is made up largely of players who won the 2015 National League pennant, including Matt Harvey, Bartolo Colon, and Noah Syndergaard. In addition, Darryl Strawberry and Mookie Wilson will serve as non-playing ambassadors for the 3-inning event, which will take place before the Mets' 4:10 Eastern Time game against the Texas Rangers. And I guess they're doing this instead of an Old Timers Day. For those of you who don't remember, for years, and I believe the Yankees still do this tradition every year, the Mets and the Yankees had, separately, of course, but the Mets had Old Timers Day, and they would bring back old players and bring back, players from in the 60s and 70s. They'd bring back old Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giant players, and they'd fill it out with Ralph Kiner would be there in his Pittsburgh Pirates uniform, and the Wayner brothers, and they would bring back some of the older players from the 40s and the 50s. And they would play a 2 or 3 inning game, and it was fun. It was fun to watch. It was great to see these old stars, and then it kind of faded away. A lot of teams used to do it, and then it kind of just went the way of the dodo bird, I guess. And I believe at one point the Yankees were the only ones that continued it. And, of course, there's a famous picture from one of them of Duke Snider, Willie Mays, and Mickey Mantle walking in from center field, the 3 top center fielders in New York in the 50s, all together in their respective team uniforms, and walking into Shea Stadium through the center field fence and in towards home plate. And it's quite an iconic picture. But as I said, all of a sudden there was no more old timers game. So I think this is a new spin on that, and it should be fun. And we'll see. They schedule it for September, I guess, maybe because the weather's a little cooler for some of these old guys. I can remember some old timers games going to them, and it was pretty hot out. So maybe they thought it would be better to do this, something like this in September. But this is going to be fun. This is something different, and I hope they get a big crowd, and I hope it goes over well, and I hope it's something that they consider to do every year. And instead of if they make it an alumni classic, and that's fine. It's always great to see the older players come back, and I say that, and it's different than it was when I was younger, and it was an old timers game. There was some old guys guys that played. We're talking 1966 or something, and you had guys there that had played in the 20s and the 1930s. They were 70, 80 years old. There was some guys coming out in a uniform, and it was. They didn't play, of course, but it was still great to see that these stars that you read about from that era were there and in a uniform. Some of them wore suits, but it was just something to see them in person. You read about these guys, and to see them in person, it was really a terrific thing. So I always love Old Timers Day, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to this. So kudos to the Mets for doing something like this, and can't wait until September to see that alumni classic. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back and check out the minor leagues right after this.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for interesting baseball talk, opinions, and history.
Baseball and BBQ, your place for barbecue recipes, tips, and interviews from the world of barbecue. If you like baseball and if you like barbecue, then tune in to Baseball and BBQ. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and BaseballTalkRadio.com.
It's time to go down on the farm. And on the farm this week, Mets prospect Jonah Tong. He has been sensational. He's has been one of the best pitchers in minor league baseball this season, and he was just recognized for his elite performance in May. He has been named the Eastern League Pitcher of the Month after he posted a 1.35 ERA over 5 starts spanning 26.2 innings. His other numbers were dominant as well, including a batting average against of 122, a 0.90 whip, 42 strikeouts. Tong began June right where he left off last month, firing 5 hitless innings while walking 3 and striking out 11. For the season, the 21 years old, has a 2.02 ERA, a 1.02 whip in 49 innings over 10 starts. He has allowed just 23 hits, only 2 home runs, and has fanned 83 batters, a rate of 15.2 per 9. This kid is coming, and he's coming fast. 21. They're being very conservative, I think, with him at this point, and I do not blame them. But he's gone through 3, last year he went through St. Lucie and Brooklyn, and this year he's at and Binghamton. He got promoted to Binghamton towards the end of this last year. They have kept him in Binghamton this year, and I think that's a wise move, though I could see him getting promoted very soon to Syracuse to see what he can do up there. But they're not overpowering the kid. They're stretching him out slowly, and I think that's a good idea. Because he's only 21, you don't want to risk any injuries at this point in time. But he is coming fast. And another pitcher that's been pitching well is Nolan McLean. He continues to look comfortable in AAA as he allowed 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings in his latest outing. The top prospect struck out 5 and now owns a 2.31 ERA with Syracuse and a 1.81 ERA overall. Jonathan Santucci, the Mets' second-round pick from last year's draft, appears to be rounding into form. He delivered another great outing this past week, striking out 6 over 5 1/3 scoreless innings. Through his first 6 starts of the season, Santucci owned an 8.14 ERA, but his ERA in his last 3 appearances is 0.59. He turned it around. In total, his ERA is 4.95 and dropping quickly. So Santucci has started off slowly and has now found his rhythm and has been pitching some great baseball for Brooklyn. Another reason to get out to see the Cyclones play. Brendan Girton showed great swing and miss stuff, striking out 8 over 4 2/3 innings in his last start. The 10th round pick from a year ago has a 3.27 ERA in 9 appearances. 7 of those appearances have been starts, 2 relief appearances so far this season. Now, in the minor leagues, these guys pitch a lot of both ways because of pitch counts and inning counts and things like that. So you will see a lot of guys coming in the middle of the game that are considered to be starters, but early on, this is what they do. Another thing I noticed that the Mets are doing quite a bit, especially in Brooklyn. Now, I tend to watch the Brooklyn games a lot more. I don't know. I just enjoy them. And they move a lot of these players around. I don't know if it's a something that they just do in the minors, or if it's a planned thing to get them to be more versatile when they get to the pros. But I know that they've had Carson Baines mostly in the outfield, but he's played right, he's played center, played some left, so they've moved him around the outfield. A guy like Jacob Reimer, he's played first and third base. Boston Barrels played shortstop and second. Jesus Baez, another top prospect, has played shortstop and third and second. So they've been moving quite a few of these guys, even the catchers. Suero and Hernandez have played some first base. They've played first base. They moved these guys around the infield. Now, again, I don't know whether that's a conscious effort by the Mets organization to create more versatility in their players, or whether it's just something that they do in the minors to find them their best position. But I think it's a great idea. It seems to work fine, and these kids are progressing nicely. So, like I said last week, there is a lot of talent in there. Now, whether, a lot of it pans out, we will yet to see. But boy, it sure is fun to watch some of these guys play. And time to look at the standings of it, and boy, it's terrific. And excuse me for reading it off the list. I just jotted it down real quick instead of the regular way. But Syracuse is 28-32. They're in 7th place. They are 15 games back. But the news gets better now. Binghamton is 36 and 17th, and they're in first place in their division. 7 games in the lead. And now keep in mind, all of these standings are divisional standings and for the first half of the season. But if you win a division in the first half, you're in the playoffs. So that's why it's so important. But they are first half standings, and they go back to 0-0. Most of the affiliates in the second half. Brooklyn is 38 and 16. They are also in first place, and they have a 2.5 game lead. So the Cyclones playing some good ball as well. And the good news continues. St. Lucie is 29 and 24, and they are in first place, and they have a 4-game lead. So all good news so far for the Metsies. Now, the FCL, Florida Complex League Mets, are 7 and 12. They're in 4th place and 5.5 games back. So, good news from the Mets all the way around. And that'll do it for this week's farm report. And let's take a look at the Colorado Rockies. Well, we gave you a scouting report of them last week, so I'm not going to go over it again. They're not a very good team. They do have a couple of good young players. And those we saw last weekend, and we'll see them again this weekend in their home environment. But this is clearly a team that is rebuilding, and they're always going to have trouble with pitching. The pitching has been pretty awful, both starting and relieving. But they did manage to win, I think, 2 games this past week, and even won a series. So that's something you hadn't done in a while. But, the Mets are going in there. They can't be too cocky. They just got to split in L.A. They've got to take at least 2 out of 3 of these games, and it would be nice to really walk out of here with a sweep. So they would have a winning road trip. But again, we shall see how that all plays out. The probable starters for this series is Senga, Kodai Senga, 6-3 for the Mets versus Antonio Senzatella, who is 1-10 for the Rockies. Clay Holmes will go in game 2. He's also 6-3 versus Carson Palmquist, who we saw last weekend, as well as Senzatella. And Palmquist is 0-4 on this season. And rounding it off, game 3 of the Colorado Rockies versus Mets series is Tyler McGill goes for the Mets. He's 4-4 versus Herman Marquez, who is 2-7 on the year. So that's the probables for this upcoming weekend, starting tonight for the Metsies versus the Colorado Rockies. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will subscribe as we asked earlier, and I hope you have a great weekend. So until next time, remember to keep the faith. Stay optimistic. Don't forget to subscribe. And let's go Mets. And I'm Gary Mack, and I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.